Welcome, viewers. Have you occurred? Have you ever given a thought? Has it occurred to you that the Russian-Ukrainian war is continuing, and how long has it continued? Today, if we were asked to answer this question, probably most of us will not even remember. Approximately after 1 year, 6 months, this war is still continuing. And world over, concerned citizens keep asking the questions: when will it be over? Will it be over at all? Because 1.5 years is a long time. And when it will be over, what will be the shape and size of involving countries, Russia and Ukraine? And this probably is the question which will impact global security, world peace, and also the shape of things to come. We are going to discuss, is endgame near of Ukraine and Russian war? To discuss this subject, I am very happy and privileged to introduce Major General Dr. S.B. Asthana, Sena Medal VSM. And he has been not new to our discussion. Welcome, General Asthana, sir, and immensely happy, and I feel privileged because every time you will come for discussion, I'll be as happy as ever to make your full introduction and uh, permit me to make your introduction. Viewers, the expert in today's discussion, Major General Dr. Shashi Asthana, Sena Medal VSM and PhD, is well known in fraternity of global politics and geo-politics, you know, students and researchers, and being expert commentator himself, he is well respected. And he has served in Indian Army in a very exemplary manner and has held many coveted assignments, including that of Director General of Infantry, not a mean thing. And Director General Infantry in Indian Army has got a special position and a special power and a special effect on all the operations. So he has also served as Director General Infantry, and there beside that position, today he is renowned global strategic and military analyst with global exposures, backed by many assignments in United Nations. Presently, he is Chief Instructor in United Services Institute, the oldest think tank of India. He is being invited regularly by reputed foreign TV channels for matters of geopolitics, foreign politics, and strategic analysis of defense matter. And very recently, I have seen him in the national television channel of Poland. Am I right, sir? Yes. So, to start the discussion, so let's start from the beginning. And how it is started, sir, where it is started, and what has happened so far.
Russia-Ukraine war. Firstly, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you to all viewers for giving me a chance to be able to interact with you. Russia-Ukraine war is a war which actually should not have happened have if certain security, shall I say, concerns of both the sides were addressed by dialogues of by both the sides. But unfortunately, it was not to happen in that way. The war may be fought in terms of the contact war, the kinetic war. It may be fought between Russia and Ukraine, but the actual war is being fought between Russia and NATO in non-kinetic, non-contact domain, wherein there is economic war, there is diplomatic war, there is political war, and there is information war. And this is a big power contestation in which Ukraine happens to be the battleground. Now, firstly, why it happened? There is no doubt that uh, Russia did not want Ukraine to join NATO because NATO will be on doorsteps of Russia. And despite the promise of NATO, when USSR broke, that time Baker had promised Gorbachev that NATO will not move an inch forward, that inch eastwards. But after that, there were 14 countries then, they became 30 countries. Now I think there are 32 countries. So it kept expanding and did not stop. Now, the Russians actually felt more concerned when Ukraine started openly saying that I want to join NATO. And that was the time, if you trace a little, a period little before the war, that is somewhere around early before February 23 or February 22, in 2021, Zelensky signed a decree to say that we will capture Crimea. There was a resolution passed in parliament that we will join NATO. There was a NATO exercise held in Black Sea. Now, if you see the location of Black Sea and Crimea, if Russians are blocked in Black Sea, if Black Sea fleet of Russia becomes redundant, then Russia almost becomes landlocked because the capacity of Russia to warm water or access of Russia to warm water gets severely limited. Now, this is something which Putin saw is coming. And he had to act or he had to react. That if things happen or if there is a physical attack on Crimea, then it will be too late. And knowing Putin and knowing Russians what they are, they decided to act. And therefore, they launched a preemptive so-called special military operation, which the West will call it as Russian invasion. Now, this is how the war started. Now, we have seen ups and downs. Initially, they went towards Kyiv. Whole lot of everybody initially thought that, okay, the war will be over in 72 hours. I told that time also that it doesn't happen that way. Because if Ukraine had about 6 lakh soldiers and Russians had a little more, then both sides were preparing from 2014 onwards. So it was not a cakewalk the way everybody thought. But there was a sense in what they tried to do in Kyiv. The initial strategy was that, okay, if we threaten Kyiv, not capture, because they never had the capability to capture Kyiv. It's a strong, very large built-up area, and Russians never had more than 2 lakh troops in Ukraine. So there was no chance that they could capture Kyiv. The initial thought was that if we surround Kyiv, maybe by the shock and awe effect, the political leadership of Ukraine will give in. That didn't happen. Russians also miscalculated the resolve of Western countries, how much they are going to help Ukraine. And they also miscalculated the resolve of Ukrainian soldiers. At the same time, there was another angle, that is a strategic and military angle to this move. That when they moved towards Kyiv, they actually wanted to capture Donbass. But with the move towards Kyiv, they did in military language, we call it as a turning movement. Now, this turning movement ensured that the defenses of Ukraine, which were very strong in Donbass, they had to pull out certain soldiers towards Kyiv. And that's how those defenses became slightly weaker. And that was precisely what Russians wanted. And that's why you would have seen that when political leadership didn't give in, then Russians pushed towards the Donbas region, and they captured a large chunk of Donbas region. Their initial aim was that they should capture Donbas region. They should have a south corridor which should link Russia with Crimea through a land route. And why this land route was important? Because there have been cases. Firstly, they need an alternate supply chain because the bridge was being seen too vulnerable. That is the Kerch Bridge, or the bridge which is on the sea joining Russia and Crimea. And also, there were cases of coercion of Ukrainians stopping the water to Crimea. So to resolve all that, they tried to launch the offensive in the manner in which they did. And by, let's say, about after 1.5 years, we can fairly say that they've got almost about 11% more territory than what they had after capture of Crimea in 2014. So this territory was important, and their another aim was that they should be able to landlock Ukraine. Now, and they also have soldiers in Moldova. There is a area next to Moldova, that is between Ukraine and Moldova, that is called as Transnistria. So they wanted to join up with Transnistria and block the port of Odessa. Now, Odessa has become a little beyond their capability as of now, and therefore they did not try that. Now, things have changed. After 1.5 years, what we find is that Russians are resorting to standoff attacks, and so are Ukrainians. Russians decided that they should now hold on to a strong, viable defense line and let Ukrainians launch an offensive and buy casualties, because it was seen over 1.5 years that whichever side is attacking, whichever side is doing an opposed river crossing, that is the side which will buy more casualties. So at the same time, the Russians are not getting any military hardware, any sizable military hardware from anybody else, and therefore they were also running out of their military arsenal as well as armaments. So there was a need to rake up the surge capacity and rake up the combat capability. For that, they needed some time. So therefore, it was viable for them that they adopt a viable defense line, and which was also misread by, because of the information warfare, everything is twisted in a slightly different manner. Like they pulled back from river Dnieper in the area of Kherson. So obviously, you can't be both sides of the river and can't be with very few soldiers. You can't be dominating the town of Kherson, where you will be attacked by the counter-insurgency groups, or by the shall I say sleeper cells, and by other remnants of the resistance. So built-up area is troops consuming, and therefore they found that it is not viable to defend Kherson. It's better to hold on to one of the bank of Dnieper River, and that will become strong. Now, as far as Ukraine is concerned, their initial aim was to resist any capture of territory and also cause as many casualties to Russians as they could. They also, after 1.5 years, have changed their aim. They've got fair amount of arsenal, and therefore the West is pushing them to launch a counter-offensive. The counter-offensive they kept delaying, asking for more weapons, but then the West was also losing patience. And now, once they have launched the counter-offensive, now they are realizing that the difficulties of buying casualties, difficulties of losing equipment, and they have not been able to make much headway. So it's a stalemate kind of situation, and thereafter, they have now also resorted to standoff attacks, because they have a lot of drones. Both sides are using drone warfare to their advantage. Almost, I'm given to understand, 6,000 drones have been destroyed, both sides put together. Now, that is the level of drone warfare. There is also a warfare from standoff weapons, which is called as SWGs, and missiles and cruise missiles. So this is how the warfare is going on now. Now, their aim, as of now, was their strategic aim was also very well thought of as far as Ukraine is concerned. That they were trying to hit the area of launch the offensive in the area of Zaporizhia and go on to the area which joins Crimea. With that, what would happen is that the Russian southern corridor will be divided into two. They wanted to drive a wedge there and make Russians weak, and thereafter also uh, perhaps attempt to gain Crimea. Because if they gain Crimea, then Russia becomes landlocked and they can dominate and they can open their shall I say channels of the sea channel for grain deal, for additional arsenal through sea and things like that. So this is a very crucial area, but what is happening is that Russians had made very strong defenses there, so they are finding it difficult, number one. And number two, Russians are also launching offensive defense, and therefore they are giving them a tough time in Donbas region also. So they are not making it easy for Ukraine to pull out troops from there and push everything in the direction of Zaporizhia. So this is how the contest stands as of now, and apparently both sides are under pressure to continue for one simple reason. As far as Ukraine is concerned, they cannot say no because so much of stakes have been put on them by West. They are very sure that if they keep fighting, Zelensky will retain his chair. The day he stops fighting, Zelensky will not be there. It's as simple as that. Because so far they are playing American narrative, and if they don't play American narrative, then he is not there. And it is also very clear that if Ukraine can be broken, it will be broken one day, within one day, if the West stops aiding it, and they know it very well. So they have a better chance if they continue to fight Russians than not fighting Russians and losing all the aid and the military assistance which they are getting. So therefore, they have a very hard choice. They are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Tyagi.
You mentioned about West and its role in either controlling or flaring up. I feel that they are working like a regulator, and they reduce it and they increase the intensity, and their committing hardware is something very amazing, because this conflict couldn't have continued if they were not working as a regulator. And it goes up and it goes down, and I think it is because of certain design and not by default. And right now, this is with the Russia problem that remains the elephant in the room of Russian security discussions. Putin has defined Russia as apart from and in opposition to the West. So today, it is like, Ukraine is a proxy of West. NATO is definitely deciding how Ukraine should act. And you are very right that the day Zelensky stops fighting, his career is finished. And now he cannot go back to his old profession of comedian. Uh, I have met many people, discuss officially, unofficially, personally, and professionally. And I found, by and large, Indians do not support Russia, the stand they have taken. Though almost all of them support Ukrainian citizen, their will to fight, their bravery and their commitment to their nation. But Zelensky's efforts are not supported by Indian. Maybe either we are very conscious of and capable of defining what is right, and what is ethically wrong. And Russia seems to be standing uh, on certain principle and real fears. Those fears you have mentioned, to what extent these are realistic, and to what extent these will be addressed, would be based on the outcome. Sir, you have a magic ball. You can see future. We'll come to the future, but right now, the mood question is, will it continue and how long will it continue?
It's an interesting question in a manner that uh, for a war to end and negotiations to process, the basic requirement is both sides must agree to agree. Stopping the war is not in the hand of Zelensky. Uh, Let me be very absolutely clear that to stop the war, Russia and America need to talk. Unless that happens, unless both agree, uh, this is going to continue. As far as Americans are concerned, they are in a way benefiting from the war. Their warlord are also a deep state, and they dictate lot of outcomes in uh, in American politics. The shares of arms market are touching sky high. The energy market is doing very well as far as America is concerned. America has been able to create jobs, and America feels this is election year in America, and warlords don't want it to stop, because if the production of military hardware continues, then the economy also prospers. So there is an economic benefit which America is trying to reap, and therefore they are not interested in calling it off. It is said that somewhere around March 22, March April 22, Zelensky was almost ready to say that okay, I am neutral, and Putin was almost ready to say that okay, I will not harm Zelensky, and they were about to finalize something. But then in between, he got I given to understand that there was influence of USA, and everything went haywire. Now, as far as Russians are concerned, in their case, the perception is that the whole West has ganged up against them, which is the right perception as far as they are concerned. From Russian angle, it's a case of survival. Either we withstand the West or we perish, because if we give up, then what is going to happen is that all our resources will perhaps will not see the light of the day. They will perhaps restrict all our trades. They will restrict our economy. They will restrict our growth. They will restrict everything. So therefore, Russians also, till the time Ukrainians are fighting, Russia has to fight. And Russians are also looking at that they have the surge capability. They have industrial base, they have technology, they have a will, and it is their war. In case of NATO, the NATO is not losing troops. It is Ukraine which is losing troops. Whereas in case of Russia, they are losing troops. So it is their war, and therefore their passion and compassion to fight this war is tremendous. And their resolve to fight this war and succeed is tremendous. As far as Ukraine is concerned, it would have been ideal, and many Western strategists are now realizing to say that a neutral Ukraine was best for everybody. Because Europeans find that they are the guys who are losing out maximum. America didn't want Nord Stream 2 to go through because they feared that if Nord Stream 2 gets commissioned, then Europe's dependence on Russian oil and gas will be tremendous. And thereafter, the influence of USA will reduce. And therefore, they had to do something, and war was something which did happen. Now, I'm not saying that they did it, but then the fact is, this is the sequence of events. And that's why after that you see the Nord Stream 2 was destroyed, and who destroyed is still a mystery. Everybody keeps blaming each other, but then the fact is who got benefited by not destruction of Nord Stream 2 is USA and nobody else. So this is one part of the story. The second part is that when it comes to negotiations, now what can you negotiate? There are certain voices which are coming from the West. They are saying that, okay, if you want to, they are telling Ukraine, if you want to join NATO, then you will be ready to concede some territory and make Russia quiet. Because if they don't concede that territory and try and take it, then this war is going to prolong. The second issue is, many people think that, okay, there will be some kind of negotiated settlement and war will end. No, that is, in case of Russia, Ukraine, it will not end so simply. As far as Russia, Ukraine is concerned, Americans have ensured that an insurgency continues in the area of Donbass. There is a fair amount of investment which has been done in mercenaries, both sides. There is a fair amount of investment which has been done in creating non-state actors, both sides. And therefore, these non-state actors are not going to keep quiet. You will always find there is nothing like idle jihadi or jihadi giving up his guns and thereafter relaxing. It doesn't happen. It has never happened in anywhere in the world. There are a whole lot of refugees who have gone to Europe. Not more than 50% are going to come back to Ukraine, as far as Ukraine is concerned. Neither Ukraine nor Europe will be as it was before the war. Ukraine's boundary will change. How much it changes is a matter of a guess, in a manner that counteroffensive may make a little bit of change, but not very much. I don't visualize very much of change. You would have seen that every day the Western media keeps giving credit to Ukraine that they are winning and they are making advances, etc., etc. But if you look at the map, I don't think very much has changed in the last 3 months of counteroffensive. It is still, the southern corridor is generally the same. Maybe a few villages they may have been able to capture, and that's about all. Now, this is the kind of situation which is there. As far as Russia is concerned, they know that they may not be able to capture the entire Ukraine, certainly. It's beyond their capability. And therefore, if they can retain the corridor and they can gain some more area, that is in the area in the south, that is the Odessa and area, and some more areas closer to Dnieper River, then they would have self-created a buffer which they want to create. And that is where is Russians' effort. So what Russia is doing is, as of now, conserving and building up strength. And they are hoping that this counteroffensive will peter out. And certainly by winters, it will be very difficult for Ukraine thereafter to make progress. And winter is not very far. It's just about 2 odd months. And expecting that something great will happen in 2 months, even the F-16s which have been promised, they will not be effective before next year. Similarly, the Abrams tanks are also not very effective as of now. So even if you put all calculations in place, nothing very much is going to change in next 2 months. And after 2 months, it will become reasonably difficult. And that will give adequate time for Russia to perhaps go on for a little more, shall I say, balanced kind of, in their perception, a balanced kind of posture where they have a little bit of, shall I say, buffer state or a buffer space with NATO, because they are assuming that maybe that if they don't get the entire Ukraine at some point of time, maybe that NATO may be inclined to give NATO membership to the western part of the Ukraine if it remains in that manner. Although I have my reservations, and my reservations are NATO will never include Ukraine into NATO. They will find excuses and they will perhaps postpone it. The reason is very simple. Article 5 says that if we all know that if one is attacked, then everybody is attacked. In case of Russia, in case of Ukraine, they are being attacked on daily basis. So obviously, the day you join, Ukraine joins NATO, it's a world war, and the war can go nuclear. So obviously, nobody will take such a foolish act, and I don't think that is going to happen now. and expecting that full peace will prevail between Russia and Ukraine, that's not possible with the kind of investments which have been done on non-state actors.
When you mention about the settlement, there is one proposal, and I share for the benefit of our viewers, and I am sure your attention is already drawn to it. Former US Trade Representative and ex World Bank President Robert Jolik and former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers proposed in a foreign affairs essay that the US and allies confiscate dollar 300 billion in frozen Russian assets and use it to rebuild Ukraine. Apart from the president, such a move might set a fragmenting world financial system and the future of US dollar. History suggests that the war resolutions heavy on the punishment and retribution may lose the peace and incentive. The next war, even in a total Ukrainian victory, means when Ukrainian win the war, they still lose it. So that is the paradoxical situation NATO might be facing, and you have very eloquently mentioned that NATO membership right now is just out of question. But then again, Ukraine lets us resume, sir, that Ukraine recovers all its sovereign territory and reaches a compromise, leaving areas like Crimea under Putin's control. Russia would still be a very separate and disconnected neighbor. Moscow would still have the capacity to be a continued threat to Ukraine. So, no respite, no good night's sleep for Ukraine.
Certainly. Uh, Firstly, it's far stretched. This dream is far stretched that Ukraine will recover entire territory. I don't think even the American strategists they don't agree with that idea. That's not possible because of the kind of casualties and the kind of residual capacity of Ukraine in terms of soldiers. They don't have enough soldiers to be able to launch the operations to demand or capture of the entire territory. They don't have that many. This is only possible if NATO enters Ukraine. And if NATO enters Ukraine, obviously, Russia with the largest nuclear arsenal will not hesitate in using that arsenal. And let's be very clear, in no uncertain terms, I would say USA will never risk Washington and New York to save Ukraine. Let's be very clear on that. And uh, the so therefore the stakes are far too high. Secondly, as far as the financial part is concerned, rebuilding Ukraine. Now, yes, this idea of confiscating $300 billion of Russia is a very dangerous idea. The reason is one of the drive for de-dollarization is because of this reason. Uh, Presently, most of the countries have reserves in dollars. After they have confiscated the dollars of Russia as well as Afghanistan, the whole world is slightly skeptic that if you have reserves in dollars, there may be a problem because the day you don't follow the narrative of USA, you can land up into you can land up the other side and your reserves too could be confiscated. So therefore, people are looking at gold as reserves. People are also looking at barter trade. People are looking at de-dollarization. People are looking at trading in local currency, and people are also looking at alternate currencies. Now, as of now, the share of dollars is very large in the global economy, and the dollar is the American hold on the global financial system. So it's not all that easy. It will take few decades to perhaps de-dollarize. But then the drive to de-dollarize has started. And that is where the America is also losing out. I keep saying this is a war where nobody will win. Everybody will lose. Now, who will lose less is the question. And who will lose what is the question. So America biggest strength till date was its global is hold on global financial system, and that is now slightly getting threatened. BRICS is looking for new currencies, although nothing happened during this BRICS conference. But certainly, we were looking at an alternative to SWIFT in terms of UPI payments and things like that. Similarly, the SCO was also looking in the same direction, and there are many other countries who are looking at alternate currencies. So this de-dollarization effort is the biggest, shall I say, loss which USA is going to suffer in times to come. As of now, of course, there is a problem because yuan doesn't suit India and many other major powers. So obviously there is no contender to dollar. But then the local, but the local currency in trade in local currencies that is picking up and will pick up much more. So this is
But
as
that,
far as the financial part is concerned.
yes.
Now, as far as the end state is concerned, I think if even if they keep fighting, as far as you now let me also put the end state in Europe. Europe will never be as peaceful. They will always be under threat of Russia because with belligerent Russia, with Nord Stream 1 and 2 gone, they have a problem. And today, even the sanctions are double edged. And what they have done is there is a hypocrisy in sanctions. Even today, America and Europe are buying nuclear fuel from Russia. They are buying LNG from Russia. The Europe is buying LNG from Russia. And the purchase of LNG from Russia by Europe has increased in 2022, much more than the global increase of LNG. So there is a hypocrisy involved. People don't want to waste their soldiers. They want Ukrainians to fight. They have a willing Zelensky who is letting them do so for his chair. And they are not minding this war because their soldiers are not dying. Otherwise, situation would have been totally different. It's not that Europe has, so they are giving arms to Zelensky, but at the same time they are also buying the nuclear fuel as well as the fertilizers from Russia and fueling the Putin's war. And anyone else, when he buys oil in the world, then they start giving moral lectures that why are you guys buying and why there is blood in your hand and etc etc. And the same guys, even their foreign minister of Ukraine the other day was talking when the Americans and others, all the Western media was questioning him as to why your counteroffensive is going so slow. We have given you everything what you wanted. He was saying, we are doing our best. If you feel that you can do better than you, please come and fight here. Now, this is the statement which he gave because he knows that they are not going to fight here. So this is the situation where we are. The losers are people of Ukraine, people of Europe, and the global community in general because of the high inflation, because of the food crisis, and because of other crises, and also the geopolitical environment has been spoiled in a manner that every single forum, including G20, you find everybody is taking up this issue, whether it matters or it doesn't matter.
At this point, I am reminded of my college studies when I was doing masters in political science, and very important points were being taught to us that in world community there are two most potent deterrents, and one is atomic power, and second is economic sanction. Today, after 1.5 years, in the world poker game, two bluffs are called. Being political power is no deterrent, and having heavy economic sanctions do not work. Russia very successfully proved it when we discuss about the second point. And NATO and Ukrainian combined have also proved the point which I am making so far as nuclear deterrent is concerned. So having or not having nuclear weapons is of no consequences, because that bogey is called when we discuss Indian relationship with the Pakistan. Previously, there was, at a drop of a head threat of atomic bomb. Very famously, that the comedian of a minister in Pakistan said that we have bombs of a kg, half a kg, and quarter kg, and that thing. So Russian were very successful, and not only successful, they taught lessons to country like India to be ready in case of economic sanction. And since last 1 year, government has very surely made perceptible, developments, delinking dollar, and today we would face successfully any economic sanction. That is how I feel. I may be wrong because I am not really good in understanding finances. But if that is the case, then there are some good lessons to be learned through this Russian Ukrainian war. Can you point out two or three lessons which will be positive outcome of this war, if at all there is any positive outcome of a war?
Uh, the positive outcome is that any aggressor will have to think 200 times before invading. That is one. And the world can get behind an aggressor at times. It's okay that USA did it and they walked in Iraq and nothing very much happened. But in this, I think in this age, maybe things may be different. That's one part of it. The second is sanctions actually have no effect to a determined country. And if you have resources like Russia has, they will find their place. There will be buyers, and buyers will find some methodology to buy that, which also includes the countries who are actually posing sanctions. The third is that uh, in the military domain, a well determined country and a well determined forces are uh, difficult to be defeated. The defeat is in the mind and not on ground. And that's why you see that Ukrainians certainly fought, and they have fought. There are many brave instances of fighting this war in some manner. The other important fact is that it was being believed that if you have more arsenal, if you have more technology, if you are technologically advanced, if you have more, shall I say, if your size of the military assets is more, you will be sure shot winner. That's not the case. Uh, it is also being analyzed by one of the strategists in the West, Sean McFate, when he says that the best weapons do not fire. Because if that was true, then USA would not have lost in Vietnam, it would not have lost in Afghanistan, despite having the best arsenal and the best technology and the best of the combat powers which they had. Because there are certain imponderables, and imponderables are use of terrain. The Vietnamese used their terrain very well. Same is the case here. That in Ukraine war, you found that firstly they used that the terrain to their advantage, and the Russians did not use the terrain to their advantage. And actually, they did not analyze the terrain, because such a long tank column and tanks getting bogged down is a matter of not appropriate study of the terrain. Similarly, they were tackling built-up areas without infantry. They've hardly had any infantry. So mechanized columns with very low in infantry is very difficult to tackle a built-up area, and that's why they got reverses in Kharkiv and other areas. Similarly, their logistic chain was very poor. Russians' logistics was based on rail. Now we have learned those lessons. We have systems when if we, let's say, go to the enemy's border, we have systems as to how we will push the logistics across, how various supply lines will be created. Russians didn't have that concept, and therefore they were found wanting as far as supply of ammunition and resupply of ammunition, as well as studies and things are concerned. Similarly, their equipment also, the top attack mode, they were not that well geared for. So therefore, when they were faced with this kind of missiles and they were faced with drones, they found that their equipment was not uh, uh, perhaps withstanding that kind of hits. Air defense, now creating air supremacy. It looks that if you have so many aircrafts, you will be able to create, but that didn't happen. Even favorable situation was also some. It was created sometimes when, and secondly, is the notion. There is a notion in the West, and there is a notion with Ukraine as well as I think all the countries, that by standoff attacks you can win. You can't win with standoff attacks. You can keep having as many standoff attacks as you want, but then to win a war, you need a physically a soldier actually walking into the other territory. There is no other way. So they have already pooped off 6,000 drones. They will poof off another 2,000, and the whole West is busy manufacturing all those drones. But this will continue, and so is the case with Russia. Russian industry is also busy manufacturing all these kinds of missiles and things like that. But these standoff weapons, they can create, shall I say, destruction of the infrastructure of the adversary, which is also one of the aims of Russia, that create disruption in all the military infrastructure as well as the infrastructure, dual use infrastructure, so that when you finally launch some kind of offensive, you may be able to perhaps gain more. So these are some of the lessons which I can make out after the study of this war, which are quite evident.
Uh, Absolutely feel privileged and honored when I interact with you, sir. And your clarity of thoughts bring immense value to the discussion, even when matters are very complex. You handle them in such a manner that these are very easy to comprehend. And I'm sure our audience are benefited by this interaction. And just to summarize and leaving a thought for our viewers, uh, let us understand that a total Ukrainian victory or a negotiated ceasefire and a permanent armistice similar to the result of the Korean War in 1953 are these two probable outcomes. In either cases, the permanent enmity with a broken, isolated nuclear Russia would not bode well for the stable environment Ukrainian needs to rebuild its nation. Damages are tremendous, and creating fresh new infrastructures are going to be taking very very long time. Maybe a generation will suffer, and next generation still would struggle to bring back the beauty and uh, societies, cohesive and good stand once again in Ukraine. But similars are negative after effects even to Russia. Russia will also suffer a long time. And in the meantime, the brokers are having very good time. And in India and around India, there are few voices which are being heard, and that will be the discussion we will hold next. Thank you very much, Major General Dr. S.B. Asthana. In fact, when I call you Dr. Asthana, it is so kind of full of respect to you. And when I say Major General Asthana, then also as a soldier, I feel very happy to make the salutation. And twice honor brought together Major General Dr. S.B. Asthana. Sir, gave me next opportunity to discuss something once again the way we have been doing, and you bring immense value to all the discussion. Thank you very much, sir. And for our viewers, I request you, if you have not already subscribed to our channel, kindly do so. And if you make the subscription, you hit the subscribe button, you'll get to know about next forthcoming discussion. Without subscription, you are not going to get notification. So my request is subscribe to the channel, share with your friends and colleagues, professionals, those who are interested to have detailed study and analysis of geopolitical affairs. And next, I already mentioned we are going to discuss which is happening in India specifically and around India. And people inside and outside the country are asking the question, what is brewing up? Because they are indicating or they are getting the indicators that probably this is the right time that India must reclaim Pakistan occupied Kashmir. China has once again very cleverly and also paradoxically very stupidly put Indian sovereign territories under its farcical map, claiming that these are the parts of China. But if we see that what is the real China and the territory which it controversially occupied or claimed to be its own territory, are some indication that how China operates and how China also encourages Pakistan to operate. Today, Pakistan, like puppet, is in total control of China, and they have been making appropriate noises. But Indian also are very resilient, self-confident, and full of trust and courage. And climate is right, weather is right. This is the time when most other troops are out there exercising all along the international borders. So people are indicating that something big is growing up. This is going to be speculation, or maybe there are some realities. We will discuss this subject threadbare. Thank you very much. Remain tuned in, subscribe to our channel, remain happy, remain healthy, and be good. Thank you very much.